Folks, happy Saturday. So today I am going to be giving a presentation on patience, attitude, control, and letting go. So I'm Pete. I am a hoping to be a professional trader, retail trader. Still have a ways to go on my journey, but I've been trading for 6.5 years and then trading the indices very seriously. So I opened up this presentation with the quote: "A goal without a plan is just a wish," by Antoine De Saint-Exupéry. Definitely messed up his name, but he was a French writer and pilot in World War II, and he wrote The Little Prince, um, which is a great book about the ways children think from adults and what we can learn from the way children think. Um, but I really just love that quote because it's so applicable to trading. In trading, if you go in without a plan, you just randomly start buying and selling. There's no more way to consistently lose money. So let's go start the the presentation, and I wanted to start with another quote by Jesse Livermore. So, "It was never my thinking that made the big money for me. It was always my sitting. Got that? My sitting tight. It was no trick at all to be right on the market. I've known many men who were right at exactly the right time, and their experience invariably matched mine. That is, they made no real money out of it. Men can Men who can be both right and sit tight are uncommon." And yeah, that's the heart of trading. I mean, you have to be able to sit tight, um, and not take trades. And then you also, once you are right and you find yourself in a good opportunity, you have to capitalize on that opportunity and make as much money as possible from it. I mean, you have to take your exponential bet size and go bigger and size up. Um, you have to, you can't make those $2,000 days, which may sound small to some of you, may sound big to others, but for me, that would be a huge day. That'd be, you can't make those days if you don't put the risk on when conditions are favorable. And the short time frames, I think, are the time frames that can provide some of the best edge. So there's no way to know until it happens, but that's why risk management is so important. Um, and once your first take profit is hit, then you can slide up, and that's when you can go for the big win. I mean, a 1% NQ move is about 180 points. And I think its average range is over 300 points. So it has an over, 1.5% range every day. And if you can just get 100 points every day, a third of the range, that's really, really great. And you're not going to be able to do that all the time, excuse me. But yeah, you have to sit tight and go big. So next slide. And this is on patience and attitude. So you really want to only focus on your best setups. You can't try and do too much. For my plan, that means I think what I'm realizing is I'm better at trading to the upside. It's just safer. The markets generally trend up. The bigger days are generally up. Of course, we had a big bear week, not the week that just happened, but the week before. And this should say gap close. But so only taking those A+ setups, for me, it's if the market opens above yesterday's range and we're in an uptrend, taking that gap and go. Maybe expecting a little retracement, but waiting till the market really feels like it's trying to break through a level and getting in right then. And that requires a lot of patience and focus. And ideally, you want to get in on the bottom of the micro range. And when it breaks out, it'll usually come back for a second time, but sometimes it can just break out and go. And on those times, that's when you want to start adding in some ES scalps because, I mean, you can easily add a good amount of money by going with those ES scalps on days like that. Um, Gap closes are really powerful too, um, especially if the gap it needs to close is supported by a Keltner channel and by multiple time frames on the 5 minute, the 15 minute, the 1 hour, the 4 hour, the 1 day. So it's just looking about those areas of confluence. Say the daily looks like it's going to go up, but the 15 minute and hourly look like it's going to go down. Maybe just don't take that trade, or focus on where it is, like, the hourly, there is a lot less noise than the 15 minute. So just really focusing in on, what is this supported by? Is there a very key level supporting this? Is there, what is supporting this? Is it there a pivot point it's come back to? Is there a level it's bounced off on several times? Also thinking about where the bulls and the bears have their stops. So say, this week went up quite a bit. A lot of bears were probably stopped out. So it was them closing their positions and adding to the buying. Now, what's going to happen next? I think maybe this is an anti-play and the market could go lower, but it could just keep going up and the rally continues. There's a lot of bearish sentiment, so I think it'll continue to go lower, but we'll see. When you enter a trade, you have to accept the outcome as random. You don't control the decision. You don't control what happens after you get in. I mean, you do to an extent, but like what the market does, you have no control over. So you need to focus on when you enter and what you risk. And you also need to think about the big picture too, which we're going to get into in the next slide. So it's not covered here in this slide, but while I'm on the topic, I really just want to make the point, treating each trade as a spoonful of water in an ocean, right? You want to trade as long as possible. It's the most exciting career to you. It allows you to make a good amount of money without the hours invested by like doctors or lawyers or whatever, engineers. Like CEOs. I mean, those careers all pay a lot, but they require a lot of time. Trading, you can work out, you can read books, you can focus on your interests more, and still be a successful trader. And that's what's so appealing to you, is the freedom aspect. You just need good Wi-Fi connection and a laptop, and you can earn more money than a doctor. But it all comes down to your attitude, and 95% of people can't do that. So you have to maintain patience through drawdowns. I mean, you're going to have times where you'll lose 4 or 5 trades, and can you handle that psychologically? You're going to have times like me this week when I blew up, where my stop loss was hit. It turned around immediately after and rallied over 250 points. So I could not handle that emotionally, and the next day I wanted to get even. I lost on my first 2 trades going for a gap close when it was clearly a gap and go. And I lost out considerably because I took a revenge trade. I took like 2 revenge trades and I couldn't stop myself. So you have to trust that your plan will work through those drawdowns, because you might not be doing anything wrong. Outcomes are random. You don't control them. So you just have to stay patient, shake it off, come back the next day. And that's the hardest part, like dealing with those emotions, staying psychologically disciplined through the drawdowns. That is the hardest part. because you're most tempted to take a trade outside your plan, to increase risk too much. And when in those moments, you just have to focus on the big picture. Just each trade is just a spoonful of water. If you do something dumb and react to those ego-driven emotions, you could do something that takes you out of the game, and then you have to go back to doing whatever you did before. Working in a library, being an engineer, being an Uber driver, being a waiter, whatever it is you do. Trading is more exciting and fun to me, and I want to keep doing trading. So you have to stay disciplined. You have to just trust and let go, and accept those losing streaks. One way that I'm going to start trying to do that is, as soon as I enter, I'm just going to expect I'm going to be wrong. I'm going to say, okay, I'm wrong. I've lost this trade. It's not going to work out. And just really getting in that mind frame that will help me accept it and see it as just one loss. And that's okay. Just by accepting that right from the get-go, even if I feel confident, just accepting that. And then expecting to be uncomfortable. I mean, it's normal to white knuckle a little bit, and be like, oh my God, like I really need this to go. But you can't, you have to have some perspective. You expect to be uncomfortable because trading is very psychologically uncomfortable. But, seeing that bigger picture, focusing on the longevity of your career, not taking unnecessary risks, not taking revenge trades, not doing something dumb, just expecting to be wrong. That is how you can manage with that uncomfortability. Also realizing, the sun is going to come up tomorrow. It's not life or death. You're not a doctor. You're not a climber. You're going to make stupid mistakes. It's how you respond. So if you're going to do something stupid, if you can recognize that in the moment, have the self-awareness, ideally you can just pass and not do something stupid. But if you do it with smaller size. And then there's another whole host of emotions to deal with, like what if your idea worked out really well? But just if you are going to violate your rules, just expect you're going to lose. Next slide. All right, what can we do practically? What are some ways to focus on? Well, we have to focus on what we can control. And how do we do that? We control when we enter. So having strict entry criteria, for me, that means like really observing the character of the market, observing where the inside bars are, not trading around those pauses, or not trying to trade those pauses, but rather getting in those pauses, preparing for the next move, where I think it's going to go next, which that's determined based on, all my discretionary criteria, indicators, volatility, what the market is doing. Are we in an uptrend? Are we in a sideways market? Are we in a downtrend? That type of thing. But observing the wicks, where is price being rejected from? Where are the key levels? What's the hourly doing? We can control how we manage our emotions. I talked a lot about that in the last slide. I think I'll talk about it a little bit more. So just, being really self-aware. That's all I'll say on that bullet point. You just have to be very self-aware. One thing about cognitive biases is they still affect you even if you know about them. So it is very hard to not let those interfere, and you have to step back. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later in the presentation, but we'll go to the next bullet point for now. How do we objectively recognize what we see? Looking at inside versus outside bars, counting the number of legs in a trend. Trends typically move in 2 to 4. Even on the counter trend back, there's usually 2 to 4 legs up in like a pullback. So it just depends on the time frame, right? Like markets are fractal-like, Adam Grimes always says. So looking at the wicks, already talked about that. Looking at the volatility, we don't want to trade low volatility. We also don't want to trade too high, crazy emotional volatility. Like if it's super emotional and it's just whipping around, let it cool down. It'll probably become a lot more tradable. Try to get in at a key level if you do have a bias, but don't just randomly emotionally jump in. That's a good time when you feel that urge. If you were to enter impulsively and just randomly press buy market, identify where your stop would be for that trade, put your order in there. I use really not too tight stops, but pretty tight comparatively with a lot of other traders. I trade the NQ, the NASDAQ, and I use a stop of about 28 points. So that can be more than one ATR or less, just depending on how volatile the market is. But normally it's about one ATR. And I like to get in at those, like the market makes a move, it pauses a bit or it pulls back. I like to get in there before it makes its next move. And it's important because my stop is so tight, getting in on the right side of that pause. If I get in on the side of the pause, the micro range that's closer to where I want to go, and let's say it ranges and goes down, stops me out, it could just keep going where I predict. And we really want to avoid that. So it's really important to be patient when you feel the impulse to get in. Don't act on that impulse. Sometimes it'll work out, but in the long run, it'll definitely screw you and you'll lose a lot more money. So that's when you just have to step back. And if you miss out on a trade, you miss out. But by sitting back and waiting, the times it does work, you'll feel more confident in it. You can take bigger size because you're not gambling. So yeah, put your buy order where your impulse stop order would be. Now that's kind of confusing, but I hope that makes sense. And then for reversals, I just kind of talked about that actually. That's like a new rule I'm trying to implement. You never want to guess the bottom or the top, and you never want to fade a rising market. And those are my biggest kryptonite. Those screw me over a lot. I think the market's gonna it goes up hard. I think the market's gonna reverse. It just goes up way harder, and I would have been so much better just joining the trend. So it's always better to join the trend. The trend is your friend. By trading with the trend, you open yourself up to those asymmetrical big moves that can randomly happen, and you also reduce the likelihood of being stopped out because you're trading with the trend. So it's always better to join the trend on pullbacks. And yeah, that's how it is. But if you really think the trend is going to slow down, it looks like it's slowing down. Looks like it's going to turn around. Those reversals, those antes, those double bottoms, those can offer huge risk reward opportunities too. But generally, you enter it just a bit too early. So changing your entry to where your impulse stop loss would be, usually around 30 points, 25, 30 points below. So next slide. I know I've been presenting for 18 minutes already, so I'll try and go through the rest of this presentation faster. I love this quote. When you're in the position, there's tremendous anxiety, but once you get out, you start to forget about it. And that's from Market Wizards books. And it's just so accurate, guys. Like, in the moment, it sucks so bad when something happens, but if you just let it be and walk away, it'll start to fade away. It all fades away in the end. So, and that goes back to that spoonful of water in an ocean mindset, just letting it go. And the hardest part is after like multiple losses, after you've been stopped out. How do you not take the revenge trade? How do you keep trusting your system? You just have to. It's what disciplined professional traders do, and you have to be in the 1% that wins, not be in the 99% loses. You have to let go and do that. And it's really hard, but it's worth it in the end. Next slide. All right, so we need to be selective, not trade at equilibrium, not guess tops and bottoms, never fade a trend. Have a narrow range of focus on very specific entry criteria. Read the wicks, read the inside and outside bars, make inferences and educated guesses on where it's going to go. Is the market trending? That's the big question. And what are the odds that it will go to point A from point B next? And I already talked about this multiple times, but just paying attention to the wicks, the average true range. Is the market making inside bars? Is it at equilibrium? We do not want to trade at equilibrium. We do not want to trade when it is low volatility. The pauses in between the big movements, generally the market moves, pauses, then stops. That's when we want to get in. There's the two great forces are trend/drift and then mean reversion. So the market will go in a direction and it'll drift one way, depending on what all the big institutions are doing. We just want to, I view institutions as like they're big cruise boats, like massive vessels, right? And we're just in a little dinghy as retail traders. We don't have, we've got 1,000th of the amount of money it takes to impact a market. So all we're trying to do is observe what those big fish are doing, those big cruise ships, and ride in their wake. Like, wake surfing, when people ride on the wakes of boats. We're just trying to do that. And we use technical analysis and price action to guess where those boats are going, the big boats, and ride in their wake. And we have to be objective about how we make those decisions. The less decisions you make, the better. All right, last slide. Thank you for watching this far, by the way. So, best way to control after you get in, generally, let go. Go off desk. You want to move your first stop loss to take. You want to move stop loss to take break even after your first take profit. That's fine. I should probably start doing that. I'm probably going to start doing that again. I think it's a good move, because then that way at least you don't lose money. And if it is going to come all the way back to break even, it's probably just going to stop you out. Oftentimes I find myself in a trade where it goes my way, it pulls back a lot, almost to break even, and then it goes way up. So maybe entering a lot more on that second pullback. I don't know. It depends, but generally the best thing to do is just do nothing. You turn into a drooling bias monster, as Brent Donnelly calls it, a bank trader. So you just must stay disciplined. You must stay disciplined and patient. That's what this presentation is all about, really, how to have the right attitude to be a trader, a winning trader. I think I've covered everything I want to cover, so let's go to the last slide. If you have any questions, please put those in the comments. If you liked this presentation, please press the like button, because that is the best way to support our channel. We have 4 subscribers maybe 5 as of making this video. So I love trading, and I would love to have a successful YouTube channel about it. So if you enjoyed this, please press that. I really appreciate it. Consider subscribing, and put your questions in the comments, because I love to engage. Attitude, I do have the belief that attitude and psychology is what makes you a successful trader. Of course, you need an edge, which you've back tested, and that can take months to years to find. But I've finally got that, and one trading coach told me I'm at the ego stage, which is usually the longest stage to get through, when I'm like really turning inward, focusing on my psychology, my ego, and like he said, that the coach said that that's the last stage you hit before you hit profitability, but it is the longest one and hardest to get through. So that's why I'm making this presentation. Something I can come back and watch, and remind myself. I make a lot of content just for myself, because it forces me to confront and work on what will make me a better trader, So it is work, but it's work on something I love, and it doesn't feel like work, and I enjoy doing it. So, yeah, I'll decide to end it here. Thank you for watching this presentation. Look forward to your thoughts, and happy trading. Have a good one.